Yes. Then the second stanza comes. Higher, still higher from the earth thou springest like a cloud of fire. The blue deep thou wingest, and singing still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. What does it mean? It will be quite different to you. You will be thinking, what is this all about? In the second stanza of the poem, Shelley makes some additional observations about the bird. The bird is not stopping its ascent, it is flying higher still, as if it has sprung up from the earth. He compares the skylark to a cloud of fire. It is powerful and unstoppable. Perhaps the bird is returning to the heaven from where it came first. Even though the bird is still ascending, it also keeps up its song. It does the two simultaneously. It still dost soar, and soaring ever singest. It's constantly rising and at the same time singing. The spirit is not going down of singing. Same time. Then it says it is the golden lightning. In the golden lightning of the sunken sun, over which clouds are brightening, thou dost float and run like an unbodied joy whose race is just begun. The bird is ascending up towards the golden lightning of the sun. The sun is sunken, or the low horizon. The sun is going down, the horizon where the sun meets going down. The golden, it becomes gold in the evening, right? And most likely setting for the day, giving the scene greater ambience. As sunrise and sunset have always been magical times. It flies up over the clouds that are closest to the sun, it is as if the bird is, floating or running and running. Behind the skylark is the power of the unbodied joy. It does not run out of energy. Its race is just begun. Mind blowing. See the comparison. Then in the fourth stanza he comes. The pale purple even melts around thy flight like a star of heaven in the broad daylight. Thou art unseen, but yet I hear thy shrill delight. At this point in the poem, the bird becomes obscured in the pale purple sky. The sun is truly going down and the light in the sky is changing. It seems to melt around the skylark as it flies. He compares this scene to one of the reader might come across during the day. As one casts their eyes to the sky during the day, it's impossible to see stars, but yet one knows they are there. The same thing stands for true Shelley, who senses the bird's presence but can no longer see it. It is as if the bird has become a star of heaven, or perhaps it already was. Understood? Keen as are the arrows of the silver spear, whose intense lamp narrows in the white dawn clear, until we hardly see, we feel that it is here. In the fifth stanza, Shelley makes a comparison between the bird and the moon. He is directly relating happiness and joy to the beauty of the natural world. As we know, Shelley is always with nature. The bird is as keen as the arrows of light that emanate from the silver spear, that is the moon. Like a sharp arrow coming down. It's like a sharp arrow going up. And the light falls, sharp light falls from the silver spear, from the moon. At night, the moon is intensely bright, but during the day, once white dawn clears, it is very hard to see. It eventually disappears, but we still know and feel that it is there. We don't see the moon in the morning, right? All the earth and air with thy voice is loud, as when night is bare from one lonely cloud, the moon rains on her beams and heaven is overflowed. He expands on this idea in this sixth stanza. The entire atmosphere of the earth, all the one can see and cannot see. Depending on the time of day is made greater when the bird's voice is there. The bird is as the rays of the moon that rain down from the heaven. Mind blowing. The entire atmosphere of the earth, all one can see and cannot see. Depending upon the time of day is made greater when the bird's voice is there. The bird is as the rays of the moon that rain down from the heaven. That sound is feeling like that. What thou art we know not, what is most like thee. From rainbow clouds there flow not drops so bright to see. As from thy presence showers a rain of melody. Okay. But you have only till here, till the golden arrows. After that you don't have. Keen are as the arrows. You are till the fifth one, but there are 21 stanzas. This is not the full poem. So we'll keep it till there and you read it and try to do the comprehension skills. Okay. I've given the explanation. If you need it again, go through the video again and I'll let you know. Okay. So till then, take care and we'll go to the next part. What is there? Let's see what is there on the next part. It's ode. Actually, ode is like seasons of mist fell out in appreciation. The word ode is derived from the Greek word which means to sing. Okay, so you do that, and then we have the let slip the dogs of war, the scream cut through the air, fiction. War and conflict are essential to survive of a species, and human beings are not exception to this. Since the beginning of civilization, tribes have waged war on other tribes and empires have tried to extend the supremacy over kingdoms. You have seen history. The story captures the devastation and chaos that a battle brings forth and highlights the idea that no amount of planning can prepare even the best army in the world for the destruction that a war begins. You cannot plan anything in a war. I have told you, isn't it, in the class, when you were in class 5, this is 6, that when you start having a fight, you get affected on both sides. Isn't it? We get affected from both the sides. We don't know what's going to happen. But we fight. Isn't it? So what we are going to do is we'll come and do this in the next class when we are here. I'll do it for you. It's from Mission Control, Hannibal, one of the legends. Len Deaton. It's written by him. And then we have the section 2, Going Solo, non-fiction. Training during a pilot of his World War, Roald Dahl. So nice one. We have that, and then we have the poetry, the send-off. Send-off is a poetry against the backdrop of World War I and describes the scene as young soldiers are sent to war. The poem adopts an ironic tone of the highlights of futility of war. It's all about war. War is actually destruction, we shouldn't have war. And then we have Unit 6, All the World's a Stage, the Dear Departed Fiction. What is drama all about? All the world is a stage. Who said this? And we are all actors. Shakespeare. Okay, so we have that. Then we have All the World's a Stage, poetry by William Shakespeare. We can do that. And then we have at last is All the World is a Stage, poetry. We have finished that. So after one story of the pilot and that, we finish the course and then you start. And whatever is done, please complete the homework all up to dates. Okay. Whatever chapter. So this poem also to a skylark, you are going to complete the comprehension part. Okay. So see you till then. Take care. Bye bye and have